The estimate at complete for time uses historical schedule performance to estimate project duration. The estimate can be used to assess the feasibility of plan duration. Further, the estimate can be placed within a variance, a range of likely values. To calculate the estimate, we need base data. Get the plan value. Here it starts at 12, goes to 24, 36, and repeats that pattern up to 144 in the final period, period 12. Get the earned value. It's not as regular. Here it starts at 11.5, goes to 23.5, then 37, 50.5, 59, 66, and 75.5 at period 7. We'll stop there so that we can see what the estimate does for us partway through a project. Calculate the earned schedule. It starts at 0.96, goes to 1.96, then 3.08, 4.21, 4.92, 5.5, and 6.29. Calculate the Schedule Performance Index for time. It starts at 0.96, rises to 0.98, 1.03, peaks at 1.05, and then drops back down to 0.98, 0.92, and finally 0.899, which will round to 0.90. Let's calculate the estimate at complete for time. To do so, you first have to choose the best formula for the estimate. Here are the selection rules. The rules use the Schedule Performance Index for time. Is there some separation between the values of the Schedule Performance Index for time and the nominal value of 1.0? Here, it seems that that's true, yes. Next, is the variation in the SPIT not large? Again, the answer appears to be yes. So, we choose the classic formula for the estimate at complete for time, and that is the plan duration divided by the Schedule Performance Index for time. In the first period, that means it's 12, the plan duration divided by 0.96, the SPIT, and that's equal to 12.5. And in the second period, it's 12 divided by 0.98, and that equals 12.3. And the rest are as follows: 11.7, 11.4, 12.2, 13.1, 13.4. Next, graph the measurements. On a simple XY grid, use the vertical axis for the values of the estimate and use the horizontal axis for elapsed periods. The periods extend from 1 to 12, and we can use the periods in the table below to mark out the number of the period. Then, set the scale. The maximum is the largest of either the estimate or the plan duration, whichever is greater. In this case, it's about 13.5, so the max will be set higher at about 14. And we'll start the graph at 2 to fit it in the available space. Plot the observed values of the estimate. Looks like this. And then connect the dots. How do we interpret the graph? Set a benchmark for comparison. Use the plan duration. It's a straight line at 12 periods. based on that benchmark, set threshold values. They come from governance documents, project plans, or contracts. For the estimate, common thresholds are 10% above and below the planned duration. Given that the planned duration is 12, the upper threshold will be 13.2 and the lower threshold is 10.8, and they look like this. The current estimate breaches the upper threshold. Is there a trend? Yes. The estimate has been rising consistently over the past 3 periods. The trajectory of the estimate emphasizes the impact of the threshold breach. It's time to act. Hold on, there's one more thing to consider. The estimate at complete for time uses current performance to estimate future duration. But what about performance in earlier periods? The EACt. And what about risks? And what about external factors? All of these can come into play in determining the future duration. EACt is only one of a range of likely values. If it breaches a threshold, action is warranted. If a trend heads towards a threshold breach, action is warranted. If not, the variance of likely values comes into play. A separate video describes how to set up and use the variance. We need to keep that constraint in mind. For now, let's sum up the estimate at complete for time in its classic version. EACt Classic estimates duration based on current schedule performance. A threshold breach calls for action, and a trend that closes in on a threshold breach also calls for action. Why? Because the planned duration in both cases is at risk. In the absence of a breach, the variance of likely values comes into play. For more information on this and other earned schedule metrics, here are some references.